Hello friends, continuing with last chapter epidemiology, the last topic is disinfection. Now this disinfection we will complete in two lectures, isn't it? We have actually two lectures will be required, being the topic is vast, isn't it? And by that the chapter will get over. Now here, before discussing the important terms as they are displayed on your screen, like sterilization, disinfection, disinfectant, antiseptic, aseptic, isn't it? So these are many more terms which are used interchangeably, and disinfection, as the word indicates, to make infection free, isn't it? So that there will be no any possibility of infection, isn't it? And for that, the various agents, various substances are used, isn't it? Now here the methods are there, and before methods we will see the types of disinfection, isn't it? Now there are three types: concurrent disinfection, terminal disinfection, and prophylactic disinfection, isn't it? So here, just to make you understand, you go through the textbook also, and if you are referring textbook, so that will be more beneficial for you, isn't it? Now, concurrent disinfection is the measures are applied, isn't it? Immediately, isn't it? So when the disinfection is carried out immediately, isn't it? For any purpose, for non-living objects, for secretions of the patient, isn't it? So that is called concurrent disinfection, isn't it? For example, uh, whatever the discharges are there of the patient, isn't it? So these are nothing but urine sample, feces sample, vomitus, isn't it? Clothes that are soiled with the discharges, isn't it? Then whatever the dressings are there of the patient, aprons are there, gloves, isn't it? So whatever the infectious material is there, isn't it? That has spoiled the cloths or the other objects, isn't it? And then they are to be made infection free, and for that, whatever the measures are applied, that is called concurrent disinfection, isn't it? So the disinfection purpose, which is followed immediately, that is called concurrent, isn't it? So concurrent means immediate destruction of infectious material, isn't it? Then other is terminal disinfection. Now terminal is disinfection can be done in hospitals. So when the person is discharged, when person gets recovered, so is discharged. So after they getting discharged, whatever the beds are there or whatever the room is there, isn't it? That is disinfected. So that kind of disinfection is terminal disinfection. So either the person may get discharged when he gets recovered, or if some chronic disease is there, the person may die, isn't it? So after that also, the disinfection that is done, that is called terminal disinfection. And third one is prophylactic disinfection, isn't it? So this prophylactic disinfection is carried out routinely, isn't it? We follow this at home also, like every day whatever the milk is there, that we boil, isn't it? So why we boil? So that whatever the harmful bacteria are there, those they must get destroyed. Then whatever the drinking water is there, so we add chlorine drops, isn't it? So that is also a kind of prophylactic disinfection, isn't it? Chlorination of water. Then the washing of hands with soap and water, isn't it? So when water doctor suggests to drink boiled and cooled, isn't it? So that is the also a example of prophylactic disinfection. So these are the three types that you must know. Many a times it is asked, isn't it? Concurrent disinfection, terminal disinfection, and prophylactic. Okay. Now the next part will be the various important classification of disinfectants or methods, we can say. But before that, these terms also you must know which are used, isn't it? So sterilization, you have studied in pharmaceutics subject, isn't it? So a physical or chemical process that completely destroys or removes all microbial life, including spores, isn't it? So sterilization, whatever the definition that that also is sufficient. That process of complete destruction of bacteria and spores by following various methods, isn't it? These methods we are going to discuss one by one, isn't it? Then disinfection, it is a process of killing or removing harmful microorganisms. Disinfectants, these are the agents. Disinfection is the process and disinfectants are the agents which are used to kill pathogenic microorganisms which cause communicable diseases, isn't it? Then antiseptic we have already discussed in pharmacognosy also, isn't it? So a product or the agent that destroys or inhibits growth of microorganism in or on living tissues, isn't it? And aseptic, that is characterized by absence of pathogenic microbes, isn't it? We must also know what is detergent. So detergent is a chemical agent which is used to clean surface by lowering surface tension. So whatever the detergents we use at home or soaps that we used, isn't it? So they are helpful in removing bacteria, dirt and oily material. Now the various methods of disinfection, isn't it? You must not get confused, isn't it? First we have discussed types of disinfection. Three types are there: concurrent, terminal and prophylactic. And now we are going to discuss methods. Various methods are there, isn't it? And classification is also there. You can see that the two major groups are there of disinfectants. One is physical methods and other is chemical methods. But in that, again you must know natural method is also there of disinfectant. Now natural, it will include air and sunlight, isn't it? So air and sunlight both are natural disinfectants, isn't it? Now fresh air, isn't it? And sunlight can act as a natural disinfectant because the air dries up moisture that is present in bacteria. And once the moisture is dried, bacteria cannot survive, isn't it? Then air also takes away infectious material, isn't it, which gets diluted in large volume of the air and becomes less harmful. So dilution of infectious material also take place uh, due to air, as air travels from one place to another, isn't it? Then sunlight is also a natural disinfectant, isn't it? So when bacteria is directly exposed to sunlight, so due to presence of ultraviolet rays in sunlight, isn't it, these bacteria, they are destroyed, isn't it? And therefore we expose beddings, furniture, isn't it? All whatever the things are there in direct sunlight, isn't it? So before any festival, like say for example before Diwali festival, whatever the cleaning is done, isn't it? Whatever the uh, hygienic measures are carried out, isn't it? of the furniture and all that. So when furniture is exposed to direct sunlight for several hours, that is a example of terminal disinfection. Now the other method is physical methods, and physical methods include burning is there, isn't it? Here heat is given. So these two methods, that is the dry heat and moist heat principle, you know, and in pharmaceutics you have studied, isn't it? That also we will cover here. Okay, so burning also is a physical method, isn't it? Then dry heat, moist heat, steam under pressure, radiations, isn't it? So burning is a cheap method, isn't it? So whatever the things are there which are to be disposed of, they can be subjected to burning, isn't it? Now burning of infectious materials should be done in a closed apparatus, isn't it? It must not be done in open, isn't it? Then next is dry heat, isn't it? Here radiations are also there. So before discussing dry heat and moist heat, we will discuss radiations, isn't it? Now ionizing radiations, it is a newer technique, isn't it? And this is mostly used for surgical items like bandages, dressings, isn't it? Catgut, surgical fibers, sutures, isn't it? Now, ultraviolet light has limited sterilizing power because of poor penetration into most material, isn't it? So, generally used in irradiation of air in certain areas, isn't it? Like operating rooms and whatever the laboratories are there, isn't it? Now, radiations, either ultraviolet light can be used or ionizing radiations also can be used. Now, ionizing radiations, that will include gamma radiations, isn't it? Like cobalt has greater energy than ultraviolet light, isn't it? Therefore, more effective. Used mainly in industrial facilities. Then sterilization of disposable plastic syringes, gloves, specimen containers and petri dishes, isn't it? Now ionizing radiations, apart from gamma radiations, isn't it? The infrared rays from electrically heated element can be used, isn't it? Then isotopes can be used, X-rays, isn't it? And here what is done is, these ionizing radiations, they are very much beneficial. The material to be sterilized are put in polythene bags which are then exposed to ionizing radiations. These radiations, they penetrate inside these whatever polythene bags are there with little or no heating effect, isn't it? And then the material remains sterile until the bags are opened, and it is effective method of sterilization. Then sterilization by heat we will see, and in that, you know, the sterilization methods based on the principle dry heat and moist heat, isn't it? So dry heat has low penetrating power, isn't it? So bacterial spores are not easily killed. Therefore, high temperature has to be maintained for longer period, isn't it? And therefore, the based on dry heat principle, hot air oven is used where temperature of 160 to 180 degree is maintained. Now, this is simplest method is exposing the item to be sterilized to the naked flame, isn't it? Then hot air oven expose items to as I said, 160 to 180 degree centigrade for 1 hour. It has electric element in the chamber as source of heat, plus a fan to circulate air for even distribution of heat, isn't it? So this oven compulsorily have fan, isn't it? So that air must get circulated, isn't it? So it is used for the heavy articles, isn't it? Metals, glasswares, ointments, oils, waxes, powders, isn't it? So items that are lacking water that can be sterilized by this method, isn't it? So as I said, glasswares, isn't it? Dressings, sharp instruments can be sterilized by this method. Then, based on moist heat, isn't it, is autoclaving, isn't it? Now, actually, in pharmaceutics one, you have this in detail. You have to cover construction, working, isn't it? Advantages, disadvantages. But here, in short, you must know the methods of disinfection, isn't it? So here, different methods we have, as I have gave you classification, that this comes under physical methods, isn't it? So this we can call as steam under pressure or moist heat, isn't it? So autoclave is the equipment that is used for disinfection purposes. So standard sterilization method in hospitals, isn't it? The autoclave works under the same principle as pressure cooker, where water boils at increased atmospheric pressure. That is, because of increased pressure, the boiling point of water is more than 100 degree centigrade. The autoclave, it is a tough double walled chamber in which air is replaced by pure saturated steam under pressure, isn't it? So this saturated steam is most effective method of disinfection in hospitals and laboratories, isn't it? Now, when this steam under pressure comes in contact with material to be sterilized, it immediately gives away latent heat and sterilizes them, isn't it? This is most reliable method of disinfection for linen, gloves, dressings, syringes, instruments, glass apparatus, isn't it? And culture media also, isn't it? For plastic and sharp instruments, this method is not useful, isn't it? Now, the articles which are sterilized by autoclaving should not be exposed to environment before use, as they may get contaminated, isn't it? So just one paragraph regarding each method you must know, isn't it? Then next is under physical methods, isn't it? So this slide shows the all physical methods, that is the methods that we have already discussed also, isn't it? Like we have discussed hot air oven, autoclaving, isn't it? Ionizing radiations, isn't it? Apart from here you will see filtration, isn't it? Cold lyophilization, isn't it? These are different methods. Just for your information, you must know, isn't it? So if the question is asked on physical methods of disinfection, so at least this table will be beneficial for you, isn't it? All these are physical antimicrobial we can call. Then the next category is chemical agents. First, we have discussed natural agents, air and sunlight. Then, in physical methods, the dry heat principle, moist heat, that is steam under pressure, radiations, isn't it? And some of the important physical agents in table form you have seen. Now the next last one in this is chemical methods. Now here chemicals include alcohols, maybe aldehydes, dyes, halogens, phenols, surface active agents, metallic salts, gases like ethylene oxide, formaldehyde, isn't it? Beta propiolactone. So these chemical agents may exist in the form of liquid, or they may be in the powder form, solid or gaseous, isn't it? So all three can be used, isn't it, under chemical agents, isn't it? Now again, if we bifurcate these, whatever the chemical disinfectants are there, isn't it? So liquids will include phenol, isn't it? Lysol, chlorhexidine, Dettol, Savlon, iodine, hydrogen peroxide, isn't it? Cetrimide, formalin, isn't it? Many more are there. Alcohol, these are all common examples of liquid agents. Solid agents will include bleaching powder, that is chlorinated lime, then DDT powder, isn't it? BHC powder, potassium permanganate, mercury iodide, isn't it? Then gaseous agents are also there, and in that ethylene oxide is one of the you can say agent. Apart from that, chlorine is there, formalin, sulfur dioxide, hydrocyanic acid. All these can be used in the form of gas, isn't it? So ethylene oxide is widely used for re-sterilizing packaged heat sensitive devices like sharp knives and blades. It is non-corrosive and safe for most plastic and polyethylene material. This gaseous method is preferred for sterilizing heat labile tubings, isn't it? Then various vitrectomy cutters are there, isn't it? Which are used in surgery and all that, isn't it? Then laser probes, diathermy leads, isn't it? So just you must know the agents. We need not go in detail, isn't it? Here, this is just for your information that so many agents are there, isn't it? In chemical agents also, which can be used in the form of liquid or solid or gases, isn't it? So here we have covered the various, you can say, disinfectant types of disinfection, then various terms which are used frequently. So many definitions are there. In this chapter you will find that near about 30 definitions, 30, you will find in this chapter, isn't it? So which can be asked many a times. We have covered most of the important definitions also, then types of disinfection, isn't it? And then the various methods. That means you must know the classification of disinfectants also. So we have seen classification also, isn't it? Three categories are there, isn't it? All three categories we have discussed, isn't it? So in the last lecture we will cover the disinfection procedures. Now how exactly the disinfection is carried out, isn't it? So this disinfection procedure is also very important, that we will discuss in detail in the coming lecture, isn't it? So I hope that you are finding these lectures beneficial, isn't it? And my suggestion will be that while listening these lectures, you refer textbooks, isn't it? Go through the textbooks, isn't it? While listening these lectures, you must have textbook, so that that will be beneficial for you, isn't it? Thank you.